Tomorrow is the New York primary. It is monumentally important. There are over 200 pledged delegates at stake. Right now, he is trailing in the polls, and it is a close primary. But if he wins it, not only is it a whole different race on the Democratic side, it might be a whole different country. I'm not sure I've known a primary race as important as this one is coming up, especially in the middle of the primaries. We know how important Iowa and New Hampshire are. South Carolina, unfortunately, oftentimes a big role to play, oftentimes a harmful role to play. And I'm not talking about this year. I'm talking about when, for example, and there are many examples that come out of South Carolina, when George Bush and Karl Rove played the dirtiest political tricks ever against John McCain, and that helped them to win that nomination. So we know that some of those early states are very, very important. But in the middle of a primary like this, for New York to be this important, if he wins New York, even though he'll still be behind in the pledged delegate count, I think he switches back to being a favorite. He's won the last 8 out of 9 states. We whispered of a dream that and asked this question on the Young Turks earlier. What if Arizona was the last state she won? Now, that's very unlikely. She's a very large lead in Maryland, for example, that votes on April 26th. Okay. She does not have as large a lead in New York or in Pennsylvania. That lead is narrowing every day in Pennsylvania. They also vote on the 26th. The 26th is an even larger number of delegates than tomorrow. What if he were to win that? Okay, so, but I've got to clarify something here about Bernie Sanders that's very important and very frustrating, that the establishment media, corporate media, constantly gets wrong. I don't know if they want to get it wrong or not, but Seth Abramson with yet another great article in Huffington Post about this. You know, currently the lead for Hillary Clinton is 194 delegates. If you go to CBS or NBC, they'll tell you it's over 600. Now, they count the superdelegates, which borders on a lie, because those superdelegates have not voted yet. It is either enormously ignorant. By the way, even the DNC has at this point said, yeah, of course you shouldn't count them. They haven't voted yet. They haven't voted yet. And historically, those superdelegates often switch their vote based on who won the pledged delegates. In fact, that's what happened in the last contested election, which was in 2008, the very last one. So if you're counting the superdelegates as if they have voted, you're either an ignoramus that doesn't understand anything about politics and you shouldn't be working in this field, or you're purposely lying about it. So CBS, NBC, and the other ones that do that, make note of which one you prefer. But those are your two options. Because they did not vote yet, they often switch their vote. So which one is it? Are you lying, or do you know nothing about politics and should immediately resign and move on to another job? Okay, so where do we currently stand in the actual pledged delegate race? Well, it's 1,299 to 1,105. So that is far closer than any of the mainstream press makes it out to be. He's closed well over 100 delegates in the last set of races. Won the last 8 out of 9. And on top of that, now look, this you've got every right to question if you're a Hillary Clinton supporter, i.e. the entirety of the establishment media. Bernie Sanders has also picked up 24 delegates in the last 2 weeks based on conventions at about 4 states or so, 4 or 5 states, okay? And that's because, especially caucuses, but the way that they assign delegates is enormously confusing. This is what Donald Trump is crying about on the Republican side. He's actually got a little bit better case because that's where the Republican Party officials come in and go, even though you voted for Trump, I'm going to assign delegates that are more likely to vote for Cruz, okay? On the Democratic side, it's actually a matter of enthusiasm. So there are more people that are showing up to be Bernie Sanders delegates, and the Hillary Clinton delegates are not showing up. If you don't show up, you don't get those delegates. So there's a little bit of justice there, but overall, I don't like that it's going in a way that the people didn't vote. So I think the Hillary side has a good case to make on, wait, now why did those 24 delegates switch over, and maybe this process is a little antiquated and we should update it. Fair point to make. But nonetheless, Bernie Sanders has picked up those 24 extra delegates. And on top of those 8 states that he's won recently, well, now it went from over 300 and I think a 30 pledged delegate lead to 194. So we've got a race on our hands. Do you know that we still have 20 primaries and caucuses left to go? And that, as I said, Hillary Clinton has 1,299. Wow, that is prohibitive, right? Oh, she's such a big lead. Do you know that 1,674 pledged delegates are yet to go in these elections? An enormous number of delegates have not been decided, over 200 in New York, well over that amount on April 26th that are at stake in multiple states, and over 500 pledged delegates left in California. So can a 194 delegate lead be made up with 1,674 left to go? Of course it can. That's just a matter of simple math. But they pervert the math. So, for example, do you know that relative to the delegates that Trump is ahead? So now remember, it's a different system among the Republicans and the Democrats. So they have a different number of delegates that they need to win. The delegates are assigned in different ways, etc. But if you do it proportionally, who has the bigger lead? Clinton over Bernie Sanders or Trump over Cruz? Now, if you're watching the establishment media, the answer is an overwhelming, Clinton has an unbelievable lead. Why is Bernie Sanders not in there, out of the race yet? And if he's going to stay in the race, tone down. Because obviously, Clinton's won. She's won. Oh, the Bernie Sanders people have math problems, right? On the other hand, Trump and Cruz, oh my God, that race is so close. That race is so tight. I mean, Cruz has also picked up delegates in the way that I described Bernie Sanders has. He's very organized. Trump's a mess in that regard. Ironic. Okay. And it seems like Cruz can catch Trump, and you never know what happens at the convention. That's what I hear every single day on television. Okay, now you want to hear the reality? Proportionally, Trump has twice as big a lead on Cruz as Hillary Clinton has on Bernie Sanders. Twice as big a lead. And it's not proportional in the Republican race, so he has a gigantic lead in New York over Cruz, way larger than the lead Hillary Clinton has over Bernie Sanders. And so he's likely to pick up all the delegates in New York, in which case he'll have a monumentally larger lead on Ted Cruz. No, that's a close race. But Bernie, get out of the race. Get out of the race. God forbid if you win, then you would overturn our apple cart. You're against the power establishment. The corporate media is the power establishment. Oops, did I say that out loud? No, you didn't say it out loud, but it's implicit in every report you make, what is enormously biased. So is Bernie Sanders still in this race? You bet your bottom dollar, because corporate media has already bet their bottom dollar, and they've laid down their bet on Hillary Clinton. They got no interest in Bernie Sanders coming in there and trying to take away corruption in politics, because that corruption leads to $4.4 billion in this race alone that is going to go towards political TV ads. You think television is going to help Bernie Sanders take away $4 billion out of their pocket? No. What they're going to say instead is, this race is already over. No, come on, right? Don't vote for Bernie. Don't vote for him in New York. Don't vote for him on the 26th. Don't vote for him in California. It's already over. Please stay at home. Please stay at home. Don't take our money away. Yeah, that's what the corporate media is doing. The reality is this is a very tight race, and yes, New York will be huge on Tuesday, but the remaining states also have an enormous number of delegates to assign. So let's see what happens here. Obviously, they wrote off Bernie before, and then he went on a run. And in that run, of course, what did the corporate media tell you? None of those elections mean anything. The states are white, they're weird, they're Western. They found every reason in the book to dismiss those wins. None of those count. In Wisconsin, there was a headline about Bernie Sanders likely to win, but it won't matter anyway. It doesn't matter if he wins. It doesn't matter the size of his wins. Nothing ever matters because Bernie Sanders is not allowed to win. But there's one thing they forgot. A lot of you still get to vote. And if you vote for him, goddamn right he's allowed to win.